Okay, so we are live. Right now we are live. I want to welcome our guest here, Chris. I saw him, Chris Mayville. I saw his videos on Facebook related to the trucker convoy and what was going on in Windsor at the time when they were blocking off the bridge. And I was watching his videos, and instead of trying to just look around, try and find everyone. He had really good video and was making some good points that I agree with. And I thought, should make a podcast and discuss what's going on because we obviously are on the same boat when it comes to these topics. And we believe that freedom should be restored in Canada, and you should have the right to basically, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, you don't. It's your body, your choice, and so we have him here on as a guest. So we'd like to welcome to you to the Nobody's podcast. That me and to that me and my cousin here, Yannick, made. It's not nobody, it's nobodies. So we're nobodies. Yeah, just a good little catchphrase there. And so we'd like to. Yannick is our second host, along with Vanessa. And welcome,
Hi.
Chris. It's nice to have you here today.
Well, yeah, I'm honored. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks for the attention watching the live stream from last weekend. The insanity that happened here in Windsor, Ontario last week.
No, it's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and even what's happening in Ottawa and what has happened since. I mean, it was such a joyous thing that really over the last couple of days really got sullied. And I feel that what happened in Windsor was I think almost a stage trial or I guess a drill for what they were going to planning on doing in Ottawa. And thankfully it didn't get as ugly as it could have, because there was so much mainstream media here watching. And I don't know if because the folks some of you guys are in Ottawa and you're there walking around, you can see the people. Just like with me, when I went down to the bridge to see for myself, I realized these are not what they were accused of being. A lot of these people were just regular folks. A lot of them were older folks.
Oh,
A lot of
absolutely.
women. It was not it wasn't how they were portrayed to be. And they're just decent people, Canadians loving Canada. I've never seen so many flags. I've never heard the national anthem sung out of key so many times in my life. You just get swept up in it every time. Just people are hugging you out of nowhere. I've never even seen these people, and people are just loving Canadians. I met this young guy. He's got to be in his early 20s, and he's got to be famous now. I mean, this dude will be famous. His name is Tristan, and he was there every time I was there, standing around with this long yellow pole with a big Canadian flag at the end of it. And if you go on my Facebook page and you look at my cover photo, there's a picture of him standing alone with holding that flag and a line of cops just ahead of him. It's the most ominous thing. He's a lone Canadian hero. And I'll tell you, I was out at the meeting today down at the Flag in Windsor, where we had a meeting to try to discuss, because over 30 people were arrested here in Windsor.
Jesus.
And all kinds of property was cars were towed and such. And so we don't know exactly what the total damage is, but we're setting up for charity fundraisers for legal fees and such. Right. And sure enough, Tristan was there today. As he came walking up, he had his red cap on and he had his pole with his big Canadian flag. And so the people are resolved. They're very much It's a setback, but we all knew that this was going to happen. Everybody knew that we weren't going to hold the bridge for too long.
Right.
It was very clear,
Exactly.
you know, especially like when I went down on the Friday was when they passed the injunction, when our mayor Dilkins here said, oh no, we're going to come in there and we're going to bust everybody. So a whole bunch of us ran down there right away. I ran right after work, and okay, we're here, bring it on, and we're going to face you guys. And it was a big crowd and lots of media. And I was guilty of maybe getting a little bit overzealous because I went after the CBC a bit. I wasn't calling them fake news, but they're the only crew. And this is the funny thing too. It's like the only crew that was here, and among everybody that had their own security detail. There was cops everywhere. There is women and children and old people, a lot of elderly people. And these guys are walking around with two guys with security jackets on.
I saw that. That was crazy.
And I'm thinking, like, this is like CBC that's state news. That's taxpayer money.
Yeah.
So
literally.
There's our taxpayer money going where these guys, you can go on YouTube right now and look up the CBC. You won't be able to leave a comment because their comments are shut off because they know people hate them that much.
You know, yeah,
it's true. Yeah, they show up to a protest in Windsor, Ontario, and they need to bring security with them because they're that concerned.
No, it's unbelievable.
It's ridiculous.
I was watching that video, and well, I mean, even watching that video, and even watching the recent video, you go on YouTube, and like remember whenever they were in the House of Commons and they were talking, they'll have them on CPAC, and you know there's like thousands of people watching, and they're just wanting to say something. But they don't give them the ability to say anything. And you know what I mean? And to me, it's just like a lot of people are just like, oh, it's their platform, it's their choice. It's but you kind of want people to be able to voice themselves. That's how you come up with new and better ideas than, say, someone that you don't agree with. Is you talk to them, you debate. If you don't agree on something, well, you talk about it. You know, you don't have to argue, you don't have to yell, you don't have to hate each other. Just discuss why you have a difference of opinion. And that now you go on YouTube, try the dislike button is gone because people got offended.
Well, I think ultimately this comes down to censorship, and they're really desperately trying to control a narrative. And I think ultimately you're dealing with people, again, you're dealing with liberal elites. And I'm not putting down liberals because I'm a liberal as with a lot of different things. I'm very liberal about a lot of things. But I'm talking about people that have gone through the education system to where they've come out believing that they're better than. You know, they look their nose down at the common man and say, you know, they'll be like, well, we know better than them. And that's the attitude of the leaders we have right now. They just know better than us.
Right.
And that's wrong. And so they hate the fact, number one, like we have Singh and we have Trudeau, both liberals, both are for like, you know, the liberals are like, they're pushing this Marxist stuff, which is always, you know, socialism and the workers of the world will unite. But now that they've united for freedom and not for socialism, these guys are losing their brains and they hate it. So now they're the enemy. And you start seeing the narrative always flipping. These guys are always trying to control it. So they cut the comments off. You can't comment. You can't downplay or dislike. You can't thumb down. So they just desperately are trying to control and gaslight and just keep framing the narrative.
Right.
Now, the woman who got trampled in Ottawa was...
Yeah, that was horrible, dude.
Yeah.
And they're saying that they threw a bicycle. I didn't see a bicycle fly.
Yeah, I didn't either.
There was no bicycle.
I didn't think so. I just saw like a walker on the ground. But, you know, these are the sad things. And we hope that maybe other countries will step up because Canada has such a high standard for human rights that they will maybe sanction the Trudeau government and maybe bring some more. Because at least the world has been watching and the world does generally like Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been telling people, because I was interviewed by a lot of people with the CBC and with the BBC and RT and a whole bunch of other individuals. And I think RT was the only ones who really included this point that I keep hammering home, and you probably heard me make it a billion times on live streams because I think it's so relevant that where we live is at the very end of the Underground Railroad, where people actually came to be free. So it's so bizarre to me that
so
we're gonna,
ironic right now.
yeah, it's like, how are you? We're just going to turn around and say, oh no, freedom is not. Those people that came here that were seeking freedom, and like they didn't have it where they lived, and like, oh, we're going to go here to be free.
Right.
Well, keep going, because it's not so sad to me that nobody even cares about that.
Well,
they're the ones out there burning stuff down for Black Lives Matter. And it's like, no, but this is really Black Lives Matter, and this is freedom matters for all lives. And some guy will commit a crime, and maybe he'll be unfairly treated by the police and killed. Hey man, I want to get into all the politics of that stuff. Like, I wasn't a fan of any of that, but I mean, to go and destroy other people's property and to go and to feel justified in doing it, yet these people are like, oh, we're just going to park our trucks here and screw you. And all of a sudden it's like, we can go violent on them, but we can let these people take over a block or a city block in Portland for 2 weeks and rape and kill people. And they have no problem with that. It's very bizarre time to live in.
Let me tell you, I know a lot of people, especially on this side of the border, that were completely like disgusted by that. And I'm not just talking about us either. I'm talking about, I know some people that are Black and Asian and that that are like, we don't want part of this. You know what I mean? And then they discuss about Black Lives Matter, and you say all lives matters, and they make it into like all this white supremacy thing. It's like, no, it's the fact that if you're gonna want to get rid of the race problem, then stop pointing out the differences of color when an issue comes on, whether it's white or whatnot. Just say, this is what happened, and why does it matter what color they were?
Right.
You know what I mean? I could be white and be a murderer, or you could be Black and be a murderer. Like, why does color have anything to do with it?
When you see like that's part of the game plan that they're using this type of thing on purpose. Like, they know it has legs. They know it's going to bug people. They know, like, for the longest time, that shit would sting. Right now it doesn't that much anymore. Like, it's pretty much just drops off you anymore. Like, when Justin Trudeau goes and says these people are racist and misogynist, I mean, it's almost laughable.
Yeah,
it's laughable. For
excuse
sure.
my language. It's fucking. It's awful.
It's lost all of its impact anymore. When people say white supremacy, I mean, I almost just break out laughing anymore, because it's such a joke, because they've overused these statements like these. You're a yabba dabba dooba phobe. Everybody's a phobe of some. They don't have value anymore, because they've just played that card so much. Like, the term racist. I remember like a fellow called me racist a couple of years ago when I was really when after the George Floyd thing, and I'm like, look, man, you guys are losing your nut about this thing. Stop it. Like, just chill out. Because honestly, like, don't go turning your profile picture black. All you're doing is you're signaling off your virtue that isn't there. Okay,
exactly.
So that's not. I'm like, don't treat these people like infants. And I had all these people come at me. What do you mean? How dare you say that? I'm like, no. These are your equals. Don't infantilize them. Don't treat them as lesser, and don't treat them like they can't achieve what you've achieved. They are your equals. Treat them as such.
Right.
Don't, affirmative action sucks. Like, we've got in Windsor, and don't be offended by this. I'm sorry. Don't be offended. But we have a female chief of police. She's a diversity hire. I'm sorry, but that's the only thing you can say. Like, that's an honest thing to say. And I'm not robbing her of any of her dignity or any of her agency at all. Like, I am not taking that from her. That was taken from her by the people who implemented all that affirmative action BS, where all of a sudden it's not about your merit. It's about what color your skin is or what kind of equipment you have in your underwear. That's going to determine whether you get a job, right? So she might be very well equipped to do the job, But because of the nature of the way it is, because the system, the way it's been set up, it robs her of her own agency and her own dignity. Now we can't not look at her and say, okay, is she here by merit or is she a diversity hire? You have to say, she's a diversity hire, because she can't not be a diversity hire. Like, right. It sucks because that's just the way the system is set up. And it's not me saying that. I've had a female doctor for like 20 years, and I listen to her, whatever she says. Like, I have no problem adhering to somebody who's like an authority, regardless of what nationality they are, where they come from, what gender, whatever. I don't give a shit. You know, you are I don't care. So, but you know what I mean?
We're all I agree with that 110%. And you know, just to make a quick view of my point, it's like as a truck driver, like now you see more women into it, and you see some truck drivers that are like, you know, they're kind of like they're not used to it or whatever. It's like, well, hey, you know, anybody can do it. My wife, she's my wife. Okay, she literally last year, she was just driving with me in the truck, and she was doing nursing, and she's like, you know, I think I want to try it. So went and got her CDL book. Yeah. She went and got her beginners, and started teaching her how to shift and everything. And, you know, nice. long behold, now she has her own truck with like her father. We drive truck. Of course, I have my own truck. She has her own, and now we do it. You know, and it's just like I'm never against a different, you know, a guy or a woman doing something that they say typically a male would do, or what a female would do, because it just opens the spectrum that, hey, you know, if you want to try it, go ahead. Whereas years ago, you know, you had to be on that spectrum to do things. And like, you know, back in the day, like when there was actual racism in our country, you had to be a particular color if you wanted to do things. But, you know, long behold, as time proceeded, you know, that stuff went away. Like, you know, now like black people are actors, they're singers, white people, and like, you know, the people from all over the world are doing things that back in the day, even us as like truck drivers, we wouldn't be people of the high, we wouldn't be on the same level as, say, people back in the 30s or 40s that were, you know, high achievers. You know what I mean? We'd be in the minority, guaranteed. Right. But now as society has gone on and things have kind of proceeded, it seems like we got to like this line of like, okay, you know, things are getting good, and then all of a sudden, like, it gets to like 2018, 2016, and all you see is like this Charlie tree, this like family tree, Charlie tree just going everywhere, and it's just like, okay, now you can't see this, now you can't do that, now, okay, we're gonna regulate this, we're gonna regulate that. Now it's like, oh well, you know, white people, everything is problematic. Everything,
that's the word, right?
You know what I mean? It went from a problem, which it was in the olden days, to then everything started to come together. Things, you know, things were still not perfect, but you know, the countries were kind of like, you know, the United States, Canada specifically, were, you know, they were progressing. And then all of a sudden it got to like this, you know, you get Trudeau in there, and all of a sudden the fucking ladder just started to teeter. And all of a sudden, we get Joe Biden, and then it's just...
all of a sudden things like became away from the individual, and there's so many great examples.
Absolutely.
In the United States of America is an excellent place where you can look at that and say, my God, how many people came with nothing and built themselves into something, and just because they had the ability to do so. It's remarkable.
I'm gonna tell you something, okay? Asking it, that's actually an example of me, but that's not to say I couldn't have made it in Canada. That's not true. I had jobs and stuff. I did what I had to do. But, I mean, like, I came to America. I met my wife. You know, we hung out in Canada many times before, you know, we even thought about getting married, and we were friends. And then, you know, we went together, and then things proceeded, and, you know, things led to me over here. But if
I
you
think
can
it's
add,
wonderful.
yeah, and you can ask Nick, like, it's not saying that I couldn't have made a good life in Canada,
For sure.
but when I finally, like, when I met my wife and made the move, like, where I have no French, like, I grew up in New Brunswick. If you know New Brunswick, New Brunswick is bilingual.
Yeah.
And Nick knows that. And, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't, I can speak a little bit of French, but, you know,
Sure.
I'd go and get a job. I'd go and look for a job. It'd be like,
Sure.
oh, you don't speak enough French. Or,
Right.
or yeah, or they'd say, well, our customers are like 90% this and that, and it was always just really hard for me. So like I went to Alberta,
Sure.
but I didn't like Alberta because it was like 4 days away from home. You know, I
Right.
do like being somewhat close to my family, and in Maine, well, you know, they're like 3 hours away, so it's not good in a typical normal country
Right.
setting.
Yeah.
Right. but it's just like ever since I came over here, it's just like instead of me trying to fight for like to try and stay consistent when I came over here, and it just seemed like, ask you Nick, like my progression for myself has been quite high, because a lot of my family were like, Shane again, you know what I mean? He's new job, this and that, but it's not saying I couldn't have done good in Canada, because a lot of people have, but like I'm one of the people that came over here that, you know, I didn't come over here to live here. I came over here for my wife.
Right.
But so far, like, I have
know
noticed.
a few people, man.
I have
know a few
noticed,
people.
and I have noticed one thing though, and maybe that's just my outlook on it. But I know, like in Canada, we have healthcare and stuff like that. But over here, I found it was very easy to go from nothing to progressing to getting up. You know what I mean? It almost felt like yeah, in Canada, if you would hit rock bottom, like you could go and live off the government, which you
Right.
can do in the state too, to a certain extent.
Right.
But
Gotcha.
like it just felt like, oh, like for me
There's
especially,
more opportunity.
yeah, just way more opportunity. And if you need a job, and like let's say like the guy down the store, he runs a gas station, and whenever I first came over here, I couldn't work. But he's like, oh, he said, just come by. He said, if you need work, he said, I'll pay you for the day. I'll give you a check at the end of the day. Like, if I would have had that in Canada, you know how many more full tanks of gas I would have had.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm not saying that couldn't have happened, but it was just like I came over here, I'm like, holy shit, like, okay, all of a sudden I had money in my wallet, I was saving money, you know, and then I had just got my CDL in Canada, and here's the thing, okay, when I had got my CDL, this is way before I met my wife. I paid almost $6,000. I went and took my CDL in New Brunswick at the GW Trucking, which was now Red Line Trucking.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, if you take the 12-week course, you'll get extra 4 weeks. And 2 of those 4 weeks will be with a company. And what that'll do is it'll give you your insurance like as if you have 2 years of experience. So I was like, well, I don't have. It was like an extra. It was like $6,000. It came with like $6,000 with tax for the 6-week course, and if I would have took the 12-week, was like 12,500, something like that.
Right.
But I didn't have that type of money, so I just took the 6-week course. And let me tell you, I did the course, everything. I got my license. Could not find one job. They're like, well, you didn't take the 12-week course, and so your insurance could be too high, so we can't hire you. I couldn't find a job anywhere. Just saving money. Yet my parents had helped me out. I'm not ashamed to say it. They helped me out. I took my trucking course. Still couldn't find a job. And it's like everywhere was looking for a truck driver. Everywhere. I even told some businesses, like, you know what? Just pay me a flat rate, and like I'll drive. Like I'll do it for the experience. Still no. Or even a truck company. I didn't know that trucking companies needed to have someone, you know, translate. Because I went to one trucking company. Okay, this is the truth. To be a truck driver, to hold a CDL, you have to know the language of English. That's whether you're in the States, Mexico, or Canada. That is just the way it is. I went to this trucking company, and they were actually in New Brunswick. They wouldn't hire. They said that they couldn't hire me because of my insurance, because I didn't have enough of any experience, and I was what they called I don't know, a risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
Jeez.
I'm like, okay, so you're telling me okay, on top of that, they were like, well, you need to know at least a certain percentage of French. I'm like, why? Well, you go to Quebec and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but like you literally just hand them the paperwork, they sign it. You don't have to talk to them. You just write down, yeah, sign
Yep.
here you go. Like I didn't know you have to talk to the pallets. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I'm not working
Like
for
they
Service.
look for
Yeah,
excuses, eh?
I'm not working for Service Canada here. I'm fucking
Right.
driving a truck. You know, I'm sure all the knobs. I'm sure all the knobs in the truck are in English. I'm pretty sure I can understand it, even if it's in French. I know where the wipers are.
Right.
You know, but it's just that it was just like holy, like I just
Yeah,
was
they
like,
make it worth, like they do everything they do it to make your life more difficult, to eat more of your time, which is your equitable property, which is finite because you only have so much on this planet.
Right.
And these people just eat it away. We have a good friend in town here who opened up business from like where he does like inflatables, and then he finds out that business just kind of dropping off, and he finds out there's another place on the weekend that's like a pirated place. They're doing inflatable things. So he gets photos. He calls the city up. He's like, hey man, there's these people. They're not licensed. I'm paying all this licensing. What can you guys do something about it? They go down. They say, okay, we're gonna fine you $2,000. Unless you pay the $1,000 and get your license,
That's
and then
crazy.
we'll waive the fine on you. And then now he just created his own competition.
Yeah.
So you can't do any. It's like you damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Right.
So it's one of the things where you just scratch your head. But in the States, there's in Canada there's so much bureaucracy, but in the States there's a lot more opportunity because you have cities that are closer. I have a friend who plays in a band, great drummer, and realized, you know what, Jesus, we're paying a lot of money in these tour buses. He bought a tour bus, started renting it out to his band. Now he just has a fleet of tour buses, and he takes bands out on tour. So
Holy crap, that's
he's
cool.
doing great.
That's quite a job.
That's a wonderful,
awesome.
wonderful gig,
Yeah.
and he's a big music fan, and he knows a lot about this kind of thing. So it's right at home for him. Of course, COVID, did a lot of damage to that whole industry, but it's terribly sad to see. But I love to see people going, okay, well, I'm in this, but there's no niche for me here, or it's not jumping off on me right now, but hey, I can do this. And then boom, all of a sudden they just take off like a rocket. And I know a few people that I have a buddy of mine in Cleveland that just started doing vinyl mastering, people are like huge now. The guy's huge. He's like, it's awesome to see, it's wonderful. He's a great guy. He's very skilled, and
That's
he jumps
awesome.
on it at the right time, man. I think it's wonderful, and there's no one better like to me. And that's the thing, he should be doing this. He's the right guy at the right time. So but that doesn't mean that we can't be the right people at the right time as well. And sometimes like it might be at the Ambassador Bridge, or it might be, in Ottawa right now with all this craziness, or, even with this convoy going in the States. I'm glad to see this stuff is happening all over the place, and that people are at least favorably looking upon this, so.
It's happening everywhere. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
In Canada, after January the 29th, the protest started in Ottawa. After that, we started seeing it in Europe, in everywhere, in the United States, in Australia, and so many different countries. They started doing it, and it makes me feel so proud to be Canadian and to be fighting for freedom.
I agree 100%. It's a beautiful thing. And I think everybody feels like Canadians for some reason, where, I keep saying we're the meek, and the Bible talks about the meek will inherit the earth. And Getty Lee even said that. So to drag the Rush into it. But you know what I mean? Where what the meek are is not what people might think. People think, oh, the meek are just, they're like wimpy people that are no. They're like brave people. It's the median between the middle part between reckless and cowardice is the courageous, and that's who we are. That's why these people are standing in front of lines of police And, they still stand there, even though they're seeing people getting trampled, they're getting people pulled down, getting the guns of butts in their head and beaten up. People still standing there. They're still lining up. There was still a bunch of people that came out today. And even though the police were there, and I even saw undercover police or people that I know that are police that were in plain clothes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
wow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like because
in Ottawa,
no, this in Windsor today. I'm not sure how things are. I know Ottawa is really, I think, overrun with police.
Oh, is it?
It's chaos right now in Ottawa. Unfortunately, there's been arrests everywhere, and
it's insane, right?
They're breaking in the trucks and taking the trucks away. The tear gas. That's just horrible.
Or the pepper spray. I mean,
they didn't get to that in
chaos.
Windsor. But we had the snipers on the rooftops in Windsor, and you're thinking,
I saw that. That was
children,
fucking crazy.
Older people, and they had the same in Ottawa, and I think Ottawa, they were, like I said, I think they used Windsor as like almost like a drill for what they were going to do in Ottawa, because they didn't have horses, thank God, here. But boy, man, that was something else, and I think that they're more than happy to deploy. I think the media wasn't nearly as centralized, because this was where we were. It was just one location, Ottawa. It's like there's a variety of locations where they're doing this, and the media is not going to be always in those places. And we know that the state-run media is not going to.
I was surprised that they even had horses at the one in Ottawa for the one reason.
Yeah.
It looked like the SWAT was so pissed off that they were ready to use the people as horses.
Well, even with the fact that
just it's crazy. They were just they were ready. They were ready to make. I don't know what it is, but it's like you hear those people out there and they're making good arguments, and you just see the cops just standing there like as if they're robots.
Pleading with these guys. We were doing the same thing, like trying to make, come on, like you guys,
I heard you on camera. I was like, yeah, wow.
Your parents went to school with our parents. Like your children go to school in the same schools. We shop in the same places. We know the same people. Like how is it that we're butting heads here? How are we not on the same side? How are you not? Like there's all these guys waving the flag and they're getting tackled by the cops, and it's like, dudes, like you're these guys are patriots. They're holding a flag. You're supposed to be saluting that flag, not knocking it to the ground. It's so backwards from what it should be. It's sickening, and it's sad. But these guys, like if we didn't have the centralized media in a very small small region, and because the location of where the blockade was on Church Road in front of the bridge, and it wasn't a very strategically planned. It was more of an organically thing. People just stopped, right? Like if you, I would like to think that if I had a planning or some part in planning this thing, it would be still there, but it was easily removed. Like it was like very easily removed, and the way it was set up was that you could see when you look at like the map, Google Maps, how the police probably just looked at it and said, okay, we have to push them back here so we can contain this. And that way we've got control over the whole area. And that's essentially what they did on the Saturday. And they did it without any resistance from the crowd. Like they were very much, I don't know if they spoke with them before I got there. I got there as early as as soon as I saw that they were amassing, there was a larger police presence. I ran back down there. So I was there till 1:30 to 2 in the morning the night before, and it's cold. It's February. You guys know, you guys are way colder in Ottawa. I can't even complain, but still, I hate the cold so much. So yeah, like you get down there and you're like, okay, what's going on? Are we locking arms? And people are like that. So, okay, we're going to cede it. Okay, no problem. So we made the point. The media's here. We'll allow the thing to happen, and we'll have a party for the last day and give it up to the cops on the Sunday. But they didn't even want to give it up to the cops on the Sunday. This is like 30 plus people got arrested with mischief or whatever, and their cars got towed and impounded or who knows, whatever. But
in Windsor, what day was that? That day, that was Saturday, right?
Sunday was the day that they did the most. Like Saturday, they arrested one guy who breached their perimeter in the evening, but up until that point, there were no arrests.
Well,
like, there was
that's the Windsor, right? The Windsor one we're talking about.
Windsor,
okay,
yeah, Windsor, and then the Sunday was the Super Bowl Sunday was the day where what happened was, it was the police were pretty smart about this. So I believe what they did was they probably came and said, look, we're going to take College. We want to open that up. So they're going to push us behind College, which is the main street that was right behind us, where the McDonald's is on the corner of College and Huron Church. We're going towards the bridge.
Yeah.
So they wanted to get access to that. And once they got access to that, they were able to really effectively close everything off. So as people left throughout Saturday evening, they just closed off all the entrances and blocked them entirely so they wouldn't let anybody back into that area. They had it completely locked down. And so the people who remained, there maybe 30, 35 people who stood the night with no shelter, just standing out there freezing their butts off, were left pretty much on their own, and they had no support because we were basically doing shifts, right? Like, so I would go down at 4 o'clock in the morning and stay till maybe 10, and then the next you'd see more people coming. And even when I went down on the Saturday, I went down to 7:30. I was there until about 2:30, and then I came back for maybe about 7:30 in the evening, and I was there till about 1:30 or so. And I couldn't, there's no way to get back in after that. Like, once I left, I had people texting me saying, I was on my way in to do my next shift, and the cops won't let us in. So that's how they did it. And they just froze everybody out. They knew that they could just wait us out. And then they just marched those people right to Tecumseh Road, which is a fair distance, but that's where the two blockades were, one in front of the bridge and then one at the next big intersection, which is Tecumseh Road. And so they marched everybody down there, and that's where they started busting people, and they started smashing. They smashed windows and confiscated people's cars. And I don't think they were more pickup trucks and SUVs at that point. I think all the big rigs had moved out by that time. So people weren't willing to sacrifice those. But that's what happened in Windsor, and it's really unfortunate. And then you see it happening in Ottawa is even just far worse, because they're far more aggressive. And I think there's a lot more police, obviously, the presence. They have to be for their
so many types of police here in Ottawa. I don't know how many.
There's 4 types of police there.
Different types of there's almost more police people than regular people protesting. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yes. And they cancel buses, school buses. The train doesn't go downtown right now, so they're doing everything to keep people away from downtown. And the police are literally forcing people out of the Parliament area.
And if you don't move while you're getting pulled in, beat up, arrested, put into the thinking room, whatever they called it.
Yeah,
concentration camp is what I'm calling it.
Essentially.
And
then they're like, all right, well,
you're going to detain you for, and it's going to be because of this emergency act that there's going to give them authorization to hold you for whatever an indefinite amount of time.
Well, think of it. Just think of this for a second. This is what they call, the National Emergencies Act that he put into place? Yeah. So, because he put that into place for protesters, for freedom protesters,
peaceful
okay?
Protesters.
Peaceful protesters.
Peaceful protesters, yeah.
Which is supposed to be a last ditch. It's supposed to be the last, your final, resort. And he chose not to do anything.
Yeah.
And any other, to not even try to have, not even with him, have maybe a delegation of his own people go out and try to meet with these people. No, he just went from 0 right to 100. He went from 1 right to 10, and there's nothing in between.
Well, and the act that's in place right now usually is only in act for threats of terrorism to our country, or people going around shooting each other, causing mass hysteria in a city that normal police can't control. Like, normal police can control a protest. You know what I mean?
They are controlling this protest. They've been controlling the protests fairly well. I mean, they've been doing so in a. They didn't have to resort to this violence, mind you.
Exactly.
I think the violence
not at all. Like the protest was completely peaceful. People were just beautifully gathering, and the police was there just to watch out. But they were also like supporting the movement in a way. So that's why Trudeau had to resort to these extreme measures.
Well, he didn't have to.
In the protest,
well, he didn't have to. 100%. He chose to go with this. That is completely wrong.
The final. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say the protest that here in Windsor, the police that I spoke with were all really cool. Like they were like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like you'd say, "Hey, man, good for you. You know, have a good night, guys." Yeah, you too. Like they were not against this necessarily. Like especially the Windsor cops were really cool. Like they were all really like responsive. They were not. Dismissive or even like belittling. They were like, "Hey, what's going on?" Every time I would go down to an area, I would just test them out. Even when they started doing their lineup, I would go over to them and go, "Hey, man, if I wanted to go out down here, because I'm parked down there, if I want to go right now, would you guys let me go through the line to go that way?" And the guy's like, "If you want to go there. Right now, you have to leave and you cannot turn around and come back. Otherwise, these guys will arrest you. But if you want to just go, we'll let you go." And then I'm just like, "Okay, cool, man. I just want to see, let me go find my friends kind of thing and BS on my way out of there because I just wanted to see, I wanted to test to see how reasonable these guys are being. Are they going to be reasonable? Are they going to, if you approach them in a reasonable fashion, are they going to be like, "Oh yeah, okay, this guy seems okay," or are they going to be like, "Fuck you," or "F you," or "I'm going to beat you down"? And they were always reasonable up until, well, even after when they were pushing us back, they didn't physically do anything. They just made the motion of stepping and everybody just naturally backed off until they came up to their spot. Once they put the barricades up, some guy hopped over the barricade hours later. They told him to get back over. He didn't, apparently, so they grabbed him and arrested him. And that was it. Until the next day was when they started getting thuggy, which is Super Bowl Sunday, which I would expect there probably would be thuggy on that because they probably want to watch the game. So that's what I attributed to. But anyway,
I didn't buy those cases of beer for nothing.
I know. But these guys, that's what they seem to be. And then all of a sudden, it seems like they flipped the switch and they decided they were going to go against the people and they were just going to go for the state. And what's happening in Ottawa is an atrocity compared to what happened in Windsor, which was bad enough. And I hope the world's paying attention. I truly do. I hope these people get held accountable.
Honestly,
I think that it's gone to the point where they have to be accountable. And let me just state why. So, this is going to kind of add on to what I'm going to say. With everything that happened, like I was saying about the declaring a national emergency, he literally called at the House of Commons all these people terrorists. He even called the Conservative Party saying that they were supporters of the people holding swastika flags. I'm sorry. There was one person. There was one person holding a swastika flag, and there was another person holding a Confederate flag. Okay, do you need me to print it out and show you on the screen? Where was there a Confederate flag anywhere in North America? The United States has nothing to do with Canada. And then they have a flag of Confederate flag. It's like, are you guys loose in the head? This is Canada. There's no Confederate flag here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's sad.
It's sad. And then the media takes those two things, and they didn't say what really happened. Those truck drivers got pissed off, and all the people there. It was like, hey, you guys got to go. We don't support what you have on your flag right there. Get out. The media just ran with saying, hey, no, there was racist and swastika flags and Confederate flags.
There's a bounty right now for the guy with the Nazi flag. Like they've raised like $10,000 for information to try to identify the cat with the Nazi flag. So like a lot of people are going out of their way. They chased the guy with the Confederate flag out. There's video of them chasing him out, saying, "Here he goes." He's wearing a mask. Nobody else is wearing a mask.
Wow.
In Windsor, at the Ambassador Bridge on the Friday night, there was a guy walking around with a clown mask on, and he just walks by us, and we were kind of looking at this guy kind of sideways. And there was two dudes who came up, and they were following directly behind him, and they're like, "We're keeping an eye on this cat. Anybody sees anybody with a mask on like this is not one of us. This is weird. This guy," and you know what? Everybody's like, if it glows in the dark, it glows in the dark. So just make sure if it's spooking like that, you know, it's probably an undercover agent or somebody like an agent provocateur who needs to sully the peaceful protest, because they can't. We were telling the police, like, you're not going to incite us into violence. There's no way we're going to react with violence. We're going to it's going to be like Gandhi, you know, where you're going to have to beat us because, and you're going to look bad beating innocent people who are unarmed because we're just not, it's peaceful non-compliance. We're not going to move. And that type of optic is what kept them off of us on Friday, both times, because they were going to come at us at 7 o'clock, and then they put it back till after midnight, and they still didn't do it. And then on the Saturday, when they started moving in on us, and they held back from about 10 o'clock, where they kind of gained their ground and they stopped, up until the next day when they decided, well, we're just going to clear the road. And could you just imagine if they would have just they could have had their line of police, and you know, there's a feeble maybe 30 people holding flags. Could you just imagine if a handful of them came out and just say, like, let's just walk off, get you off to the side, stand off over here, off to the side, you know, on the sidewalk where you can peacefully protest. They need the road. We have to open up the bridge again. We salute you for your, you know, tenacity and your patriotism, you know, but like, you know, it's over. Okay. Like, if you guys just want to, that would have been so beautiful. They could have, you know, we could have all walked away, like, you know, going, yeah, okay, you know what, we had our differences, but you know what, we resolved this and we made our point, and, you know, we got the bridge back open again, which, I mean, we're all happy with the bridges. I don't care that the bridge is open again. I'm fine with it. It's not like the blockade did its job. It got people to look at what was going on here. It got Doug Ford to lift these. He's going to be lifting the mandates. It got other states or provinces to lift the mandate. And even with the Ottawa blockade, or the Ottawa protest in the Freedom Convoy, that, like, the main one, it sparked this movement around the globe. It's beautiful, and people, it really is. It's a gorgeous thing. And you think, because I've heard so many people say, how can we be free and, like, our friends and brothers and sisters in other parts of the world not be free in 2022? Like, how is that possible? If this is if we're gonna fight for our own freedom, then we kind of have to fight for everybody's freedom. So how are we gonna let, like, China not be free? And how are we gonna let Cuba not be free, or Venezuela not be free? Like, how can we sit back? And, you know, this is like a big tidal wave of freedom. And I love the fact that, even though we hit some rocks and it's a lot of splashing and it's pretty ugly, unfortunately, it's not it's not as bad as it could be. And I think if the world condemns this, which we needed to do, we need the world to condemn this kind of behavior, then I pray that we can all look at this as an example and say, okay, never are we going to tolerate this kind of crap again, you know? Fingers are crossed.
You know, and Yannick and I were talking about how, I mentioned the fact that why is the Trudeau government doing this right now when the provinces are willingly setting dates to reopen the economy, given the fact that our COVID numbers keep going down, regardless of all the people protesting, vaccinated, unvaccinated, masks and unmasked. So, and then he brought up the fact that there was you can talk about it. Why Trudeau wants to keep this going? Why doesn't he want to reopen the economy?
Well, if you look up online, Trudeau has ordered, I think it's around 400 million doses of Pfizer.
Yes, like
that's 10 times the population by the way, Trudeau.
Yeah, they're gonna have boosters.
And now there's like a new vaccine as well coming out.
They wanted to make sure they had enough for everyone's pets.
Here, coming out. It's
give this.
It's already been accepted, right?
Yeah. Hey, give this to your child. Give this to your mother. Oh, and give this to Fluffy. If you have enough.
Next thing you know, you have a present. It's like, oh, I got you the 20th shot for Christmas.
And the thing is that like they keep selling it to you like, oh, it's free. No, we're paying.
It's not free. We're paying with our taxes. We're paying. Every single person is paying for them. So Trudeau is making Canada be in debt with all those vaccines, all those investments on unnecessary multiple doses of vaccines that we don't even know if we will need.
Absolutely. Well, then you look at what's happening.
Our economy.
When you start looking at what's happening in other places, like Project Veritas just dropped another video or series of videos about the FDA and how the FDA is being paid off by these pharmaceutical companies, and what they want to do is have a yearly booster, and it's going to be a mandatory thing. And they were saying the White House is going to approve it, and you wonder, like Trudeau, of course, he's been so adamant, and they've moved the goalposts so often with this. Every couple months, it's like a different metric we have to go by. All of a sudden, it's like, well, 70% of the population is now herd immunity. Now it's got to be 90. No, it's got to be 100%. Everybody's got to be vaccinated. And it's just so suspicious because there's no reasons ever really articulated as to why these things have changed. It's just all of a sudden, it's just, well, this is the way it is now. And,
it's true.
Where did that
exactly
come from?
True.
Yeah, really though.
Drives me nuts, man.
Well, think about it. To everybody here, right? Like, what were you doing in 2019? No, serious. That's a serious question. So I'll start with you, since we're getting to know you today. What were you doing in 2019?
Me? Working. Yeah, I was working.
Okay.
I was working. I was working at the job that I work at right now. Plus, I was also working at the Caesars, the Coliseum. I was stage crew there, so I worked with a lot of bands, loading them in. I did video crew there as well. So I was working the video for the big screens on some of these productions. So it was a lot of fun. I have friends who work there. I've got a background in recording engineering and playing music. Oh, nice. So I've played music most of my life. I've got a bunch of bands that I was playing in. I wasn't as active as I had been before, but I had a band that I've been playing in for, since the late 90s, but we've morphed into a backing band for a lot of people. So we worked with a lot of cool, like Elvis guys, so that's kind of like, we would get these big money deals, gigs for backing up an Elvis dude. And that was kind of the extent at that point in time. And then everything just got, rug got pulled out, right? So everything just kind of dried right up.
Right.
But I had a bunch of acts. I had a bunch of things going on, and all of a sudden, all of it just came to a screeching halt. Some of the acts, I haven't even talked to the guys in the band since that happened. One of the bands we were set up to do a really badass show. It's killer, man. I was looking forward to it. It was all these cool late 70s, early 80s tunes, man.
So that basically you led into the question I was going to ask. What did you then do in 2020? Can you remember what you were doing the day before the government had finally released that, hey, there's this COVID and here's all the restrictions?
No, I mean, I was well aware of it, but long before
you were?
that.
Okay.
I was aware.
Yeah, me too.
I was aware of it long before. I was aware of it probably by, I was aware of the Event 201 shortly after it took place in October. So I've been paying attention to a lot of that stuff, and I just keep an eye on the players. And when they start doing things, I usually keep my ear to the ground. So I was kind of like suspicious. And then I started hearing about people passing out on the street, probably around Christmas, maybe around that time.
Yeah.
Around 2019, and then early January, I was well aware that there's a virus and there was something spooky going on, something that didn't quite go right. But I was working the whole time, and by the time I think March, April, when the lockdown started happening, I just worked all the way through. And because my wife and I, we don't, she's a big into nature and she likes going out and birding photography. So we just spent a lot of time out in nature. So we didn't really focus on going into around civilization. So we kind of just stepped away from that. And I just, kept working and kept my ear to the ground. And a lot of the jobs that I did, because I worked for a fellow by the name of Jan Irvin, who does the Logos Media podcast, and it used to be called Gnostic Media, and he's had he used to have Joe Rogan on his show.
Oh wow!
A lot of pretty big people on his show.
That's crazy.
He's get very conspiratorial. So I've been working for Jan for 10 years, doing banner work for him and doing music and video stuff. So he even dropped off the planet for 2 years. During that time, he wasn't doing anything either. So I wasn't even doing any creative stuff with that. And he just started re-ramping back up and starting to do radio shows as well recently. So I had banner work to do for him. But before that, it was just everything kind of just came to a screeching halt, and it became, just try to day by day and, try to stay busy and try to stay away from society. Stay away from the government because I don't trust them. Fortunate. But yeah, that's basically what I've done. What about you guys? You guys are all young, right? So you guys, you're in school, or you shortly?
So I'm gonna start.
Okay, yeah, yes. Go ahead, Nick.
So for me, 2019 was coming along. Everything was going fairly well. I was in college. My last year of college, and I started watching online on YouTube. Some guy was talking about Corona, but it was called SARS-CoV-2 back then, or probably something else. I don't know anymore. He was like, there's 200 cases now in China, and it just kept going up. And I got really into it. And I got to a point where I was watching that during my college class. And I was like, man, this is weird. I hope it doesn't break out into any other place, because the way the guy was talking, the scientist on YouTube, he was like, if this breaks out to here, we're going to have to do big measures. And he was like thinking ahead of time. Yeah. And when March came along, things were getting classes were getting much harder, because obviously at the end of the year, they want to pack as much information into you so that you're ready for the industry once you're out. And then March hit. First things first, a whole week where the school was canceled. And we were like, okay, what's going on? The teachers, we got in contact with the teachers, and they're like, we don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah. And then we ended up figuring out to use Zoom, but it was for 1 or 2 classes a day for a 1 hour class. Essentially for what I'm doing, which is animations and graphics, drawing, and doing life drawings and animation. It was very difficult. Nothing was happening anymore. All the projects that they were giving us were like, well, we can't really give you this because we can't review it in person. We can't, a lot of things that we do is in person. We can't just do it online, or at least not at the time, because they weren't prepared for that. So in the end, the last 4 months of my college education, we did slim to nothing. It kind of killed it, honestly. And it was really unpleasant. But yeah, I remember the first experience of knowing that we didn't have class anymore. It was surreal. It was like, this is really happening. Like this is actually in Canada right now. And at first I was very paranoid about it, because the way they were talking about it, it was like, if you get it, you're going to have a permanent mental issues or permanent health issues. And, I'm not going to not believe it. I'm not sure, right? Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. And, it affects everybody a different way. But yeah, for me, early on, it kicked in, and it really destroyed my last couple months of college. Yeah. Because my idea was finishing college, going to Ottawa, living to Ottawa, working Ottawa, and, getting my life together, really starting things going. But yeah, I came here, and no matter what, I ended up coming to Ottawa, even during COVID. My mother wasn't too pleased about that, but I was like, I want to try it, maybe it'll work, maybe. I came here, I applied to at least 50 different jobs, not a single one were taking me. It took me around 6 months of being on Ottawa before I got a singular job, and it was just a bare bones working at Staples job. Like, nothing special, right? So I'm getting, instead of being paid like a little bit more than minimum wage in my department, I ended up getting paid bare minimum in a place that I really didn't think I was going to be working at all. But yeah, and I came here with my girlfriend, and she wasn't able to get a job. She got a job at Staples, but she has a lot of back problems. So for her, it would be better if she had an online job or something that doesn't require her to be standing. But yeah, like I said, we both applied to like 50 different jobs. We brought our resumes and physically we sent resumes digitally. We didn't get anything. It completely killed any sort of possibility of a quick, like, future career building moment right after college, which is kind of like the best moment to get a job, because your whole brain is all fresh from all the knowledge you just learned from the 2 years you've been spending, or 4 years at college, right?
Yeah.
So
really,
that was really unfortunate. And now I've been here. I worked at Staples for a whole year, but I hadn't seen my family for about 2 years at this point. So now I'm here. I'm jobless because I ended up quitting my job because they wouldn't let me get some days off, because Staples is like, oh, well, you're not actually full-time, you're part-time, even if you're doing 45 hours a week.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
just under the threshold.
Yeah, I know. It's the way they work it.
Yeah.
So insidious. It's so underhanded.
Yeah, and then it was so understaffed that there wasn't even a general manager. And when we finally got a general manager, and I was like, okay, well, I've been working for about 7 months, 8 months at this point. I would love to have a promotion. I know what my job is. I've done it. Every day I've done my job and I've done it well. And people are constantly saying that I'm doing a good job at what I'm doing, because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna stay here, save up a bunch of money, and once I'm ready, I'll leave. But right now, I'm focused on staying here. He was like, well, unfortunately, I don't know you that well. I've only been here for like 3 months, and I've been here for 8. So I was teaching him how to do his job at some point. And I was like, what am I doing?
That's happened to so many people that I know that were actually running the place, and then they keep sending people, and they get trained by these individuals, and then they go on to throw them under the bus, screw up, get replaced by someone else. And eventually they'll let the person, they'll give it because they can't have nobody else. And then it'll be a big success. And then they'll take the back for it. Yeah. You always have to want, places like this, always watch out for people who privatize the wins and collectivize the losses. Because, they're the ones who are, you know what I mean? Right? They come along like, hey, I am the one who got this, I'm the one who got us this great deal, or I'm the one who did this thing. And as soon as something screws up, it's like, hey, guys, we all got to do better. Come on. We got to try harder. It's not, they never take responsibility when it's a screw up. Only when it's successful. And when it's a screw up, it's everybody else's problem. It's like, come on, we got to do better next time, guys. It's just so funny that people do that, but that's one thing I find in corporations that it just drives me nuts.
Man. It was ridiculous.
You're screwed no matter what. But working in a gig like that, it's the frustration of that gig, right? And it's sad, but yeah. I mean, there's not to say there's not a future there, right? There very, very well could be. It's just the game you have to play to deal with it. Is
I call some of those dictators in the making.
Oh yeah, they would be.
That's what I call those. Yeah.
It's so funny because a lot of these individuals that I know that are very much against this stuff, who are scowling at the truckers, and the ones who are looking down at them saying they're a bunch of scum and supremacists and stuff. These are people that view themselves as being good people. They think of themselves good people, like they think they're the shit, like they view themselves as being good, honest people. They have empathy for people. Yeah, but it's selective, right? it's like they empathize with these people, but not them. It's selective. And you listen to guys like Jordan Peterson, and he's like, to be a good person, you have to work at it all the time. It's a constant work in progress. You have to constantly be trying to do what you think is the right thing at the time. And a lot of these individuals, they don't. They just pass themselves off as good people because they feel bad for the poor Black person that got abused by a cop at some point in time. And they equate that to all the slavery that happened, which there's a lot of bad things that have happened. Like, no one's saying that they weren't. But like, let's face it, there's a lot that, there's a long time that's gone between then and now, and everybody that's existed between then and now has their agency and can go about making decisions for themselves. So let's bring everybody into the big pile, and we're all the same. And if you set your mind to something, you can do it, and no matter what color you are. But that's the thing. A lot of these individuals, they just don't get that. They just don't. They refuse. It's always just a reason why, and they have to be the ones to come and fix it, right? Because nobody else can. It's a sad thing. It's just the way it goes. But yeah, no, we're living through weird times right now. I'm praying that I don't know.
Well, see, like when I was mentioning, not changing the subject here, but like a while ago, whenever I was making the point of like, what were you doing in 2019, 2020, is because I know with all this that's going on with like you said, the racism, calling everyone racist and all this. Okay, if I go from the year 2000 to the year 2010, that's pretty much from when I was a kid to a teenager, right? There was a lot of differences in my life from the year 2000, 2010. You know what I mean? Both small and drastic. I can't say with everything that's happened in my life, and I don't know if you guys can say the same or not, but I've never seen such drastic change in society from 2019 to now. And all the times of whenever I didn't even understand, what even was going on in politics, and to be, 30 years old now, and, worried about what the hell is going on. Because I'm going to be honest with you, in 2015, 2016, like me and Nick were talking the other day, we were like hanging out, man, I was going to his place, I was hanging out with his family. We weren't talking about politics. We weren't talking about who was the racist and who was not. And you know what I mean? Everybody just kind of
about your music.
We're talking about we're talking about music. We're talking about playing video games. We're talking about just random stuff. Yeah. All of a sudden, 2019 comes along. 2020 comes along, and it's like, holy shit! Like, half your friends are like gone that you thought were friends because you had this thought, and
it's okay because they come back. I just had a whole bunch come back. I've had a whole bunch. I swear, it's true. And I don't know if you guys were around for Gamergate, but I was around in Gamergate. And when that happened, like, I wasn't a huge gamer at the time, but when that happened, I heard about that, and that's when I really kind of started paying attention to like.
Do you want to explain? Sorry, not to cut you off, but you want to explain that just so we can.
Gamergate. Yeah. Happened in like 2015.
Just for people who might not know, you know what I mean?
2014 to 2015, and essentially what it was in the gaming community, video gaming community, there was a whole host of like online magazines, if you will, and they all focused around obviously video games and the video game lifestyle. And so the people who are fans of this stuff, they're into this stuff. They're reading all about it, like you guys would know if you're into anything. You're always wanting to follow the fanzines, and you're following all these things. There's a scandal that happened with this video game developer, and she did a video game. It was a very boring video game. And I don't know if you played Depression Quest. I don't know if you played that or not, but it was like not much of a video game. It was really not much. But she got great reviews. And then it turns out that she was having affairs with all these people that were writing and giving her these great reviews, these game journalists, right? And her ex-boyfriend wrote this huge, expose about how she had affairs with 5 guys. And
Jesus.
and they're all
5 guys, burgers and fries.
You know it, right? Did you see that? Because the internet aristocrat, who is now Mr. Medicare. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mr. Medicare, but he's hilarious. But he used to be the internet aristocrat, and he did this whole video, 5 guys, burgers and fries, and it blew up. And that's where I first heard about this. And then I first heard of Sargon of Akkad, who now is Carl Benjamin from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. And Milo Yiannopoulos was one of the guys. He was a journalist for Breitbart. Yeah. And what he did was, when he found out about this, he got a hold of a list of journalists who were colluding. So it comes out that all of these journalists were colluding against the fans of the video games. They're all social justice warriors, and they all came up with these articles in all their respective outlets, putting down the video gamers, basically attacking their own people, and saying all these guys are just neck beard mummers living in their mom's basement playing these video games, all white guys, right? So thus started Gamergate, where the gamers started fighting back against the gamer media, which was all co-opted by the social justice warriors. And a lot of these people who are new video games were really boring video games that had all these woke shit in them. And the gamers hated them. They were like really panning them. So it became this big battle. And so the gamers, who then you find out a lot of these people are of all different ethnic backgrounds. It's just like the truckers. It is the same thing. They're being framed as being white guys. And meanwhile, you go to any of these truck things and it's all mix of everybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people from
there's
every
quite a variety there.
Tons of
colors,
women.
Different
Different
nationalities, different everything.
Everything, right? So that's thing. So you have that was one of the first big battles, the culture battles that happened. And because you're dealing with these social justice warriors, these people who are woke, they're coming out of these universities, these echo chambers, and so many of them have been promoted into these positions of authority or positions of power where they can write for these outlets, and they're spreading all this insanity, and a lot of it's racism, a lot of it's all critical theory that they learned in school, and they're spewing this stuff forth. But the problem is that when they picked on gamers, they're picking on people who play video games for a living. They love this stuff and they love to win. And so they're like the most tenacious MFers on the planet. And they're like, we're not going to bend over. So they're like, oh, screw you. And like, they just came back and the meme wars happened. And that's and these people just started losing that so brutally. And so that was the beginning. And Gamergate, some people say it's still going on. But you find out before that, it was the woke tried to take over the atheist movement. And they tried to turn the atheist to atheist plus. And that blew up. And that whole thing just disintegrated. And nobody wanted anything to do with it after that. Then they moved into the gamer community. And then they tried very briefly for Metalgate, where they tried to take over. And they tried to introduce woke stuff into the heavy metal thing. And they didn't tolerate that at all. They put the kibosh on that. And then they tried to get into like the science fiction authors, and there was a movement called the Sad Puppies, which these science fiction authors were like basically making fun of these woke. And then you got guys like Ethan Van Sciver from DC Comics and Marvel Comics. Now he's got his own comics thing, and he's got Comicsgate, where like these guys who were driven out of their, and they were very popular, artists at like DC and Marvel, the big guys, and they were driven out by all the woke stuff that's going on in there. So this stuff is infested everywhere, and it comes along. It's infested Star Wars, it's infested Star Trek, every possible thing that people love, it gets in there and infests it. It corrodes it, degrades it, so that you hate it.
Jeez.
And then it's a cancer, right? And there's this guy named James Lindsay. I don't know if you're familiar, but he's a really bright guy. He was involved. He's a professor, a mathematics professor, but he was involved in this thing called the Grievance Studies, which is one of the greatest trolls ever, where these 3 professors got together and wrote fake papers and submitted them to academic journals, like something like dogs are racist in dog parks, and like just really the conceptual penis, like really bizarre, stupid, like overtly ridiculous papers, and they submitted them to very prominent academic journals, and all of them were accepted. And so when that came out, they revealed that they were just big jokes and they were making fun of the whole process of the academic process. And so that became they call it the grievance studies. So this guy, James Lindsay, he has a website called New Discourses, and he's been very instrumental in dismantling the critical theory that's gone into all of the wokeness, and he has a few books out, and he does a lot of really good, excellent podcasts, reading some of the papers of these people. But one thing, he's really excellent at pointing out the fact that these individuals are they come along with this idea, like they know what they're talking about, but they don't. They have no idea. And they'll even tell you they have no idea when they ask them what their utopia is like. They can't tell you. And he equates it to people trying to fly an airplane while they still are building it. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with all of these politicians and all these ideologues who don't even know what they're talking about. Like you see Matt Walsh going on Dr. Phil talking to these transvestites and transsexuals, and they're trying to define, he's like asking them, can you just define what a woman is? And they can't even define it.
Yeah.
Like you can get a dictionary and look it up, and there's right, so we're dealing with insanity, right? And these people, their whole dialect, like Lindsay points out, it's all Hegelianism. I'm a high school dropout, so don't, I read a lot, right? So Hegel, he's got his dialectic, and it's like abstract and then negative and then concrete, and that violates the laws of logic. So as far as I'm concerned, everything that the left touches is illogical by definition, because they keep using the same dialectic. Hegel had it. Marx was a young Hegelian, so he took the dialectic into his dialectic of materialism. And then these idiots over here in the Frankfurt School, they have their dialectic, their cultural dialectic, which they're pushing. And that's where we get critical race theory and intersectionality and queer theory and all that other idiocy, where it's open racism, open, sexism, open everything that, it's like the antithesis of what we're told is, by the civil rights movement, that it's the antithesis. It's like the opposite of that. And they're saying that that's bad. It's the most effed up thing on the planet. Yeah. And if you watch this stuff, you can't help but scratch your head going, okay, well, how did we get here? How did this happen? But you're saying it happened, and it did for a lot of people. It happened within that period of time. But then you go back into the 80s and you look at G. Edward Griffin, and he's interviewing this guy named Yuri Bezmenov, who was an ex-KGB agent. And this cat defected to Canada, and he worked for the CBC. And he tells you about the 4 stages of ideological subversion and how the KGB were not involved in espionage. They were involved in subverting the West. And as an offset, just to be as more effed up, that guy, Yuri Bezmenov, died here in Windsor, Ontario in 1993 or something at Grace Hospital of a heart attack at the age of 54 years old. It's like the most bizarre thing. There's no way he wasn't assassinated or wasn't taken out by probably some Russian agent, because he's going around, like they did that stuff, they would just they would take these dudes out. Next thing you know, they just drop. But that's the thing, is there's so much, when you start realizing oh man, there's been dudes telling us about this stuff for 50 years. And I didn't know. I'm just finding out about a lot of this stuff lately, right? You just shoot right over your head. And how do you know? I don't, I get it, man. I was just a little bit before paying attention to the SJW stuff. I didn't even know what that was until Gamergate hit. Social justice warrior, what the heck's that? What's all this stuff? But that's the thing, we all have our moment when you hop onto it. And if I had not bumped into that, I would have bumped into this most likely, because how do you avoid this? This is your face, I'm sorry to go on the huge rant, but you can, there's dudes that can go back even probably 50 years before that saying, oh, well, there's so-and-so on this and that. But it's crazy. The vast majority of people have no concept, and even now they don't even know that where we're at. They have no idea that we're living in Herbert Marcuse's world. They think that it's 2022, it's the current year. That's what, right. That's what it is, right? So,
well,
man, it's nuts, man.
Well, really sometimes I think about everything that's going on, and like we're talking about all this, and like I was mentioning a while ago, like you said, you didn't even know, like, what was the word even social justice warrior even considered even a word? Was that even a word back like in, let's say, I don't know, 2015?
Yeah, it was like they were calling themselves that.
Right.
But you go it's like the manipulation of language, because they do that all the time. They take a word, and it's true, like justice has a meaning to it, but they augment it by throwing social into it. So it no longer is justice, it's social justice. And that's how they operate. Like all of the words, like racist doesn't mean what it means to you and me. We look up the definition and it says, okay, to pick on somebody because of how they're born or because of, their religion or creed or whatever. To them, it means, oh, you're white. That's what racism is. You're white. You're guilty of racism, maybe by the virtue of being white. So it's a very different thing. Like they have their own definitions, and that's how they operate. And like they're very insidious because they can't come at you truthfully, because like we live in the real world and we deal with the truth. Like you're asking honest questions about, hey, how can they say these things? Because that doesn't make sense, because no, we're not like this, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at it like, how can I use this against you? How can I use this as a sword against you? Because you're going to be on a defensive as soon as you're accused of being something as horrible as a racist. You're going to be like, whoa, I'm on defense now, man. Like, hey,
right.
That's been the problem right now. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
The division that, like, all these people supporting the, I guess you could say, the measures taken in place by the government, like they are thinking that the other group of people is the problem. So they think that the protesters are the problem. However, all I've seen from the protesters is just peaceful and loving. They're just promoting the message of peace, dancing, happiness. And so it's just this major divide. Exactly. Literally. It's all this major divide caused by the government and by the media.
Yes.
This divide, like siblings hating each other, like spouses getting a divorce, because it's just all this divide caused by
unbelievable.
Exactly, extremely unbelievable. We're just hating on the other group when in reality well, from my personal perspective, I don't hate anybody and I want everybody to be okay. But I feel like the government has taken advantage. It's abusing its power in Canada way too much. And we need the power to go back to the people so we can go back to living a society that is worth living.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, when I was out on Saturday night out at the event, I ran into a guy that I'd met couple of days beforehand, really a nice, very peaceful individual. And I recall it's on video. I'm sure I have it on video, where I said something about, how awesome it is if people would just see, come for themselves and see what it was like around everybody. Like they would have a different, I've had people like literally say, thanks to your live streams, like I have a different opinion because it's not at all how it's being portrayed. And this guy says to me, he says, we have to be, how do you put it? He says, these people they're laughing at us or saying all these things about us, we have to keep our arms open for them, because they have to come back to us and we have to be able to heal. And so we can't hate them, because we need to have them back with us. We have to be whole again. And so to me, that struck me as a very, that's a very noble position to have, because it's very difficult. It's easy to want to finger and accuse people. And a lot of these people are being assholes right now. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of dicks out there who are like just joyfully laughing and loving the fact that these poor people are getting abused. And I don't think it's right at all. But I hope that will come to their,
Well, yesterday I was in my truck and I was getting loaded. And I was listening to. I wanted to just see, like, what the media was saying about everybody. So I went on Facebook on the Freedom Convoy page, which I don't know if there's anything still going on right now or not, but
I think
I watched a live feed from someone on their cell phone, and then I went and looked at, like, I think it was Global News or whatever it was that was there, and it's just like every time there was something someone did that was over exaggerating, someone was over exaggerating, or someone was, acting up or saying something stupid or causing someone to get pissed off, they would put the camera on. And when you watch Global News on the camera, it didn't look like that way. But then you watch the live feed of someone on their camera, and they're sitting there filming Global News or whoever it is, literally turning on their camera as soon as something bad happens. But whenever there's people dancing and saying "Kumbaya" and dancing in the little houses for the kids,
thank God for
they weren't there. They weren't there. Nope. They weren't there. But then you saw the live streams. Okay, this is true. You can go on Facebook. You can go on YouTube. Oh, well, maybe not YouTube. I don't know. But on Facebook, there was, like I said, there was people with their cell phones filming the media, just abruptly. Let's just turn our camera on. Oh, this guy's gonna fight this guy, or it's like, well, what the hell are you guys doing?
I'll tell you, man, I appreciate that so much because I've seen a lot of that. We caught a lot of that ourselves, and you almost have to. And there's one. I mean, this is kind of funny, and I mean, I don't want to pick on anybody, but we were down there this early morning, and I ran into my friend Dusty, the musician that I was telling you about, and he was being interviewed by Miguel Marquez, I think his name is. I think he's with Headline News, CNN Headline News, and it was in the morning, and they were going to go live, and there wasn't a lot of people around. There's only a handful of us around. We're standing around, and but people were crashing their cars and stuff, and they're doing the countdown. He's about to go live. And as soon as they turn the lights on to go live, I swear to God, no word of a lie, every frigging car just hit the horn and held it down for the entire time. It was a sea of horns. It was like 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. It was just, and just for the whole time. And then the light goes off and they stop and he turns around. Everybody's like, why? We were just dying. It was like, that was so beautiful. Like that was just a beautiful moment. But you almost have to, because I watched so much disingenuous footage from mainstream Canadian media where they were literally trying to downplay the size of the crowds, or they were trying to show like they were almost like they had plants, people that were going to be negative actors, or somebody doing something that might be considered something that they could all fake rage, and they can feign their outrage about, and like they'll all pretend mad about, how they get like, oh my God, they put a flag on Terry Fox. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing
they put
ever,
a Canadian flag on Terry Fox.
A Canadian flag.
So
I know. And, okay, so you got a bunch of people that are like, they're fighting an uphill battle, and they go to the Capitol, and there's a statue of a guy who lost his leg to cancer and said, you know what, I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to put my head down, and I'm going to struggle through all the hardship because I'm going to bring cancer down. And he runs across the country, and you think, okay, that's not going to be the perfect friggin', like, that's the perfect example of what a Canadian is. And these people show up on the doorstep and like, you're going to try to disparage that? Are you kidding me? And then
Terry Fox. Yeah, Terry Fox. Well, he would have walked to that protest. He would have probably supported that whole thing.
No
Maybe
kidding.
not, but I'm pretty sure he would have.
Hero. Like, there's no Canadian that they could ever disparage him. He is like viewed so highly because of his tenacity and the fact that like he's what you do. Like when times get tough, man, you get tougher, and if that's not what these people represent, I don't know what is. And then they try to make a thing about the tomb of the unknown soldier, and it's like, oh, the guy who died of the heart attack, or no, he had a hangnail. What, he tripped and fell? No, he died for fighting for freedom. And these people are here fighting for freedom. Wow. Literally. You know, like they missed the point, right? Like it just slides over people's heads how obvious so many of these things, and they try to frame this narrative against these people, yet any footage just shows someone's grandma or someone's mom, you know, or someone's like grandpa standing there going, you know, I'm doing this with reading letters from kids, bawling their eyes out. I mean, like you can't get any better. And like, I don't understand how like the optics and this thing are just people, you can choose not to look at it, but anybody who has, and there's so much footage. So thank God people are taking the footage. Thank God people are live streaming. There's so much of that there's no way people can say that it is the way the media says it is, because there's just too much raw footage to
exactly
to encounter that. And we have to keep that up. That's why we just have to keep filming. We have to keep these things on. Keep, you know, we're going to keep filming what's going on here at the bridge, because they're blocking it all the way down. They've got this whole thing locked up now like crazy. So they're causing such a huge issue with people. And to me, it's like they're concerned that they're so concerned that this, you know, very organic blockade was so effective.
So
shut the bridge down.
So I have a question. Now, so I'm assuming you're in the Windsor region, of course?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there still protests going on as we speak? Like with, well, maybe not, I don't know, maybe not late tonight.
At the bridge? No,
nothing?
Not the bridge, no.
But is there any at all, like in the city? Oh, there is still. Okay.
No, now, there like today there was one today, but it wasn't a protest as much as there was a meeting, but it was all the people that were at the protest that were at the meeting. There was downtown at the Flag, and they do that. They have a protest there every week, or they have a gathering there every week. And next week they're planning for other things. So now they're setting up for like fundraising drives and a few other things to get going, and they're planning on a few other events. So yeah, there's a lot of organization, and there has been for the last couple of years, but there's a big drive. There's a lot of people involved in pushing this thing forward, and they're already talking about what other protests we're going to have, and they've done slow drives as well over the past week since this is
in Fredericton, New Brunswick. No, sorry. Well, there was a protest in Fredericton, New Brunswick, but I think that was just because of Blair Hicks. But one of my friends on Facebook had told me, well, he posted on his Facebook that apparently they were doing slow drives, like between certain regions and whatnot. Yeah. I think it was for 2 days. And then over here, I heard that once that whole thing in Windsor kind of was going on with the police and all that, well, I heard that once they had because I did hear that they got the trucks removed, but then I saw videos of people like still protesting and like the cops still there, like so it was. I was hearing that the Buffalo Bridge, then people were heading apparently to the Buffalo Bridge. So I was like, okay, what?
Sarnia too.
Sorry, I heard of that one.
Yeah, the blue water.
So I was just like, you know, like here's the thing I'm thinking about all this. Okay, you know, if there's one thing that can maybe have a big change on all this, if the protests don't work, the protests get canceled. No, everyone says, okay, we can't protest because everyone won't let us. Okay, we can't fund the truckers because if we try to, our bank accounts get froze. Okay, we can't do that. We can't even give someone Bitcoin because they'll freeze their wallet. You know what I mean? And no one in the U.S. is going to make an account because, you could send money and make a give, send, go in the States and give, send, go.
Yep.
I don't know if you heard that or not, but I think they're set in Massachusetts somewhere, and they had said like the Canadian government's not going to tell us who can and cannot send money.
Yeah.
But where the money gets taken out, then obviously that's the banks and whatever not. So yeah, in the U.S. here, they could put money into a U.S. account, but that's not going to help out the truckers that's there.
No.
Right. So
no, I mean this is a really pathetic desperation. I think it's blowing up really poorly in the face of the Canadian government. I don't think it's gonna. Too many people are losing faith in the Canadian banking system or in the Canadian government. Why would they want to invest? Why would anybody want to invest when you can do that? When they can just seize your money? Yeah, like that gives nobody.
I'm sorry to tell you, until Trudeau and his government is gone, I'll never. I was going to open up a TD account in TD Canada Trust because I have a TD account here in the States. I was going to open one in Canada because I can wire money like to and from. Yeah. Sure. Well, I don't care if it costs me $20 to send $100 to Canada. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to support that.
Nope. I don't blame you.
Sorry, I'm not going to do it. And no, and here's the thing, like what I was saying, okay, protests, okay, if you do that, you're called terrorists, called racist, whatnot. Okay, so we can't protest, we can't send money, we can't help the people that's there. You can't even give fuel, you can't even give food. If you're giving food to some of the truckers, people were getting in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Like, how does that even part of humanity? You know what I mean? My wife, like, she was saying, oh, maybe one day we'll live in Canada. You think she wants to live there now? You think you think this is making it nice? You know what I mean?
You're better off where you're
her family, they want to go snowmobile, but now they're scared of, like, how can you blame them? You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I want to tell everyone how great Canada is, but I can't right now.
Canada was great.
It was great.
It's no longer.
I'll say this though. Whenever I talk about whenever we talk like this, we're talking about Canada. But whenever I tell people I love Canada, I'm not talking about with the government. I love the people of Canada. I love my country. I love all the places to go. But despite the government, if we're gonna call that Canada, no, I despise it right
now. Like, you see, like, Klaus Schwab would sit there and he's like on video praising Trudeau about his like Build Back Better stuff. Klaus Schwab is the guy who wrote The Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. He's the guy who's head of the World Economic Forum. People like to say it's a conspiracy theory, but you can buy the books. They exist. You can read them.
Yep. Audiobooks too.
Yeah. So you can find out what they're up to, and you realize that Trudeau, and not only Trudeau, but like so much of his cabinet are all on board with that. So that's why they're doubling down on this. That's why they need to have these mandates. They need to have the social credit score system. They know, like the Democratic or the Republican states in the U.S. that have basically bucked the system and said, screw you, the Floridas, the Texas, places like that where they're like, no, we'll just, people will be what they're, like you said, the red, these are red states that are like, we're not gonna, we got our guns, we're not gonna mess with us. So there's a lot of people that are out there that, that are looking at this going, hey, like, they're fine. Why are we under this? But these guys still got to double down. They need this to happen. They're so invested. Why would he order so much? He's just so invested. It's ridiculous. It's just he's so knee deep into it. He can't turn around right now, and they can't stop. So they have to put all the heavy stuff. They go from 0 to 100. Like, okay, truckers show up. The guy bounces. He runs away and hides. Oh my God! Like, that is pathetic. Number one. Right. I didn't get COVID, but I might have got COVID. But I gotta go. He did. For a week, and then he's gone, and he comes back. He slips back into town and go to Parliament like he's so brave. Well, why don't you go and talk to the truckers, or even send a delegation and say, "Come on, guys. What if we do this? What if we do nothing? No, and then it's just like Emergency Act. Okay, war. Let's like the War Measures Act. Let's just jump into that because all of a sudden we have a bunch of peaceful people sitting in trucks not wanting to move and listening to tunes. It's like, it's the most
Can you imagine like just doing that instead of actually reasoning with them? Like, sorry to interrupt. Like the convoy organizers, they literally wanted to sit down with government to talk about how to solve this. That's all they wanted to, in the most peaceful way possible. Yes,
you're absolutely right. Like nobody, where were even the conservatives? Like they took forever to get down there to talk to them. Like, how are you not jumping on this? Why are nobody taking these people seriously? And then now they are, but like the conservatives are, but nobody seemed to want to do it. And it's like the most obvious way of nullifying this whole thing is just by going, okay, what can we do to get you guys to go home? You know, how hard would that be?
Literally.
Nobody cares, man.
Well,
so sad.
I'm gonna narrow this down for all the people that, you know, that are like, oh, well, he had to do this national emergency for Canada. I'm gonna narrow this down even for the simplest minds. Okay, you go to a dollar store. Okay, you go and you buy something. You start yelling at the employees and threatening their lives. What's going to happen? The cops are going to come in. They're probably going to arrest you. Right? Okay. You walk in the store. You go. You pull up with your grocery cart. You start putting your stuff on the, on the machine, and they start checking it all out. All of a sudden, the SWAT team comes in and pins you down and hauls you out and arrests you.
If you don't leave immediately, you're gonna get pepper sprayed.
Yeah.
You're gonna get fucking run over by horses all of a sudden.
Like the fake bombs, or what was that?
They had scare tactics. They let off like 2 bombs or something during the protest today in Ottawa.
Really?
Yeah.
While people people were singing. What exactly?
Yeah,
were
they were saying
"We
love you." They were singing "Oh Canada," and right after that, they started chanting "Oh We Love You." And then as they were chanting it, they
tear gas.
They had 2 bombs. No, not tear gas. Legit, just 2 bombs that just make a lot of noise, like a very loud noise.
Just to scare the people to make them back off.
No, they used every scare tactic they could today.
Yeah.
Really crazy.
They did that in Windsor with us, where the Saturday night, where all of a sudden they said they're coming out into the crowd with a dog because there was a bomb threat, and so they came out with the dog, and there was like a bomb sniffing dog came through the crowd. So they may have been planning that as well, because that's very odd. And I asked people if there was ever anything that ever came of that. Yeah. And they said, no, not that I'm aware of. Like the dog came out with the guy, they came out, people made room for them, and then that was it. But there was no explosion, thankfully. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and just end with my story about the dollar store. I didn't want to cut you guys off because you're making some really good points. But it's just that, in a society where, like, where there was no threat, they used the National Emergencies Act for a scenario that absolutely had no need for those levels of events. Like, there was nothing that was happening to even need anyone to be arrested. Okay, maybe the person was a swastika flag and a Confederate flag. Okay, I get that, because you know what I mean. You're not there. You're not there to. They weren't there for the cause of the truckers. They didn't look like truckers. They weren't dressed up. You know what I mean?
Right. The one with a Nazi flag. There's a guy that said that he saw the guy with the Nazi flag, and what he was chanting was, "Do you want our country to be like this? Do you want us to turn like this?" Right. So he was with the truckers. He was making a good point, but the media took that flag and they were like, "Oh my God,
yeah,
they're Nazis."
And here's the thing. Right? I understand what that guy was doing, and I believe, he was expressing himself in that way, but he had to have known that the media was going to be like, "Oh, there's a swastika flag, a Confederate flag." Well, like, what's the Confederate flag, though? You know what I mean? Explain that one, because it's like, that had absolutely no... That's just like going to a movie. That's like telling you... That's just like go into a horror movie and it turns out to be a comedy. Like, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, both of them really, because like, you know, people talk to me about Nazis. I'm like, you know, I mean, you got a time machine, because like Nazi Party was abolished in like 1945. I mean, the party
really
actually collapsed, right? So it doesn't exist anymore. And anybody who just walks around with the apparel, I mean, all they're doing is LARPing, right? They're just live action role playing. And it's the same with the Confederate flag. Like, really, all you're doing is LARPing. You're just walking around going, "Look at me, I have a flag." It's like, yeah, it's meaningless, right? It's like, to me, again, they're just as meaningless as the stupid, as calling people racist, or they just lost all value. So now it's like, you know, all of a sudden something happens and there's a swastika, and now all of a sudden everything gets framed. Like nothing else existed. All of a sudden a swastika, so everything goes out the window. We have to just focus on that. And so then we can say, well, because these people are showing this swastika, or because there's one in the presence of any group of individuals, that they all subscribe to this, and that we can nullify all their other points and just throw them out the window because of this one thing. And that's all they do. That's all they do, is just come along and just distract and nullify and go, well, because of this, we can say this, or well, because of this, we can treat these people poorly. Yeah. Hey, you guys are racist and you're misogynists, and you have like, you know, you're a fringe minority with unacceptable opinions, so we can treat you poorly. You know, he's inciting hatred against the segment of the population in clear violation.
That's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Just him saying,
creating more division.
Just him saying that protesters have unacceptable views. Yeah. Automatically, he's a tyrant.
But not just protesters, because he agrees with the BLM protesters. He had no problem with them pulling the John A. Macdonald statue down, or pulling all those other statues down. That's okay. He had no problem with BLM putting in a BLM statue or flag on.
You go around giving cookies free to people. You go around giving cookies and coffee and all that free to people.
We're too nice,
and you're terrorists.
That's okay.
And we're deep terrorists.
Flag on Fairfax all day long. Nobody cares. And you know, the thing is that all the other Canadians that I know, if they saw a BLM flag on Terry Fox, or if they saw a rainbow flag on Terry Fox, they'd be like, "Oh, whatever." You wouldn't give a shit, right? Because like it's like, he's everybody's hero. Because you know what? He's a regular dude who faced like unsurmountable odds, and he did everything he could to overcome them. So why wouldn't other people want to use him as their inspiration? And why would we have a problem with that? Why wouldn't we consider that desecration? They're so bizarre about it. It's like so selective. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm so outraged because of this happened, but meanwhile 2 weeks ago I didn't care that happened. So then this is repressive tolerance. And so because of this, they've lost all credibility, right? So we can look at them and go, oh my God, they're such hypocrites. And look at how funny they are when they're so angry, so fake angry. The fake anger, what kills me, how just, I can't believe it, but I'm flying on Terry Fox. Like, oh my God,
society
putting flowers at his feet, you know, like, oh my God.
Well, society right now, what you see a lot too, is they do a lot of judging the book by the cover rather than actually looking at the back of the book to maybe have an idea of what it's about first. They automatically just jump through and just look at the front and say, you know what, that's a horrible book, don't read it, it's awful. It's like, well, first of all, you didn't even take a minute to maybe read a little bit to see what maybe the book is about, or potentially the things that you can expect to maybe what it's going to be about. And they just automatically jump to the front cover, and that's it. End of story.
I think it's even worse than that sometimes. I think they actually know what the book is, and they just misrepresent it on purpose because it goes with their narrative.
Oh, definitely. There's room for that too.
Yeah. Lie to your face, man. Yeah. Like, I remember these cats, I was talking to these guys, and they were like so nice to your face, and then turn around like they just, it's like, oh, whatever. I mean, they got a narrative to push, right? They got a narrative to push. And definitely. So they used a quote from me that I didn't even use. I have the whole interview on the live stream, and nowhere do I say these things, but they attribute this statement to me, and in his angry, defiant tone. Well, I mean, I don't think I was that angry, but maybe I was. I listened to it and I go, I don't know if I was that angry.
Who wasn't angry in the last month with all this going on? I probably said some crazy stuff, but you know what? It was all in contribute to, me being pissed off that, people don't have their rights. They don't have, it's China now. It's crazy.
And also, like a lot of, like you said, you have a legitimate beef, but because maybe they can frame it this way, they try deliberately to make you look unhinged, so that you're mentally, that's how they love to frame. They want to frame you in the way they want to frame you, and it's always going to be in a manner that's going to be in the least best light as possible. So they want to paint you as some maniac or some, recluse or some nut job, conspiracy theorist or whatever. And they just keep doing the same thing over and over. It's like character assassination. They just keep doing it.
Definitely.
For sure. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And like I was going to say a while ago, with everything that's going on now, where you're not allowed to have, or make it like, because who after this? Okay, let's say nothing changes after this. Who's then gonna want to have a protest? And I mean, and what outrage is there gonna be whenever there is a protest and Trudeau allows it? Like, he's just creating more fire by trying to eliminate what he thinks is fire. Like, he's not really resolving anything. He's just gonna make one side more pissed off at the other. So next time there's a BLM protest, there's gonna be fucking people down there, and it's not gonna be. I don't know. I mean, it's not like what you see here in the States, but it's not gonna be. You can't tell me that's gonna help.
It's not going to go back the other way, right? So like that's their whole thing. It's like now is the catalyst. They that's what they say in this. In the theory, the Great Reset stuff, they have to take advantage of these things. They're taking advantage of the situation to push society towards where they want it to be, which is far away from individual rights for you and I, and for collective rights for the group. And that's how they're trying to justify this. So what they're hoping to do is just keep pushing this forward, not having to answer for anything, and then make it so that now, you're not going to, they've already outlawed it. You're done. Like, they're going to be able to pull this war act out whenever they want it, and they're going to be able to frame whoever they want to frame as an enemy of the state. And this is all done deliberately. So, this is the push, and they've got Biden in place in the U.S., so they don't have any opposition there.
Yeah,
like if Trump was in place now, there's no way any of this would be going on. Like none of this would be going on if Trump was
What was I telling you today, Nick? I was talking to you, Nick, because I was on my way home, and I have a Bluetooth headset on my truck so I can talk, right? As I called him today, I'm like, Nick, I said, people can say whatever they want about Trump, but if he would be the president right now, I have a hard time to believe that the Canadian government would be getting away with this right now.
No, they wouldn't be able to. There's no way. There's a lot of things that wouldn't be happening that have happened. We wouldn't have gas prices the way we have right now. That's insane. So all of the stuff that Biden has done that Trump had put in place, that he immediately took out of place, is really put in a really bad position. So if Trump was still here, like him or not, like I never watched his TV shows. I knew nothing about the guy.
Yeah, me either.
I didn't really care, right? So, but the fact is, when people start maligning the guy, I start looking into it and asking questions. So I'm like, well, is he really this bad? Did he really say the things that people said? And I find it like he didn't. They always misrepresented everything slightly, but even so, they took every chance to misrepresent the guy. So I'm looking at this. He's fiscally responsible as far as way he ran the country compared to Biden. He was looking out at the border. Biden doesn't care about the border, and that shows the southern border. So there's a lot of destabilization happening right now under Biden, where Trump was really trying to straighten the things up and try to stabilize. The military too. It was a total mess after Trump left, because Biden really dropped the ball. Trump was getting it going. Afghanistan was an absolute travesty. And that was on purpose. Like, that was not done deliberately. Trump had pushed for that. That was supposed to be done, I believe, in May. And Biden pushed it all back to August, which is right before September 11th. If you know anything about Islamic history, September 11th is a very important day for those guys. It was like 1683 or something like that, when they were at the gates of Vienna. They were the most powerful force on the planet at the time. And then I don't know, 30,000 Polish troops showed up on the hills above them and crushed them the next day. So is September 12th, I think it was like 1683. I think it was. I can't. Don't quote me. But regardless, it was September 12th was a day that was like that they got crushed by the Polish at the gates of Vienna, and that was the last of their that was the beginning of the end for them, because they were the most powerful force before that, and that's why Osama bin Laden chose September 11th. It had a lot of relevance, and that's why Biden pushed it back until just before September 11th to hand over all of that military goodie, all of that military, honey.
Yeah, really.
Stuff. He just gave it to him as a gift.
Tanks, choppers.
If it was
That's
Trump,
crazy.
he would have either taken it back or destroyed it. That's what you were supposed to do. You don't give up that kind of military. It's all done on purpose, right?
There was thousands of Americans that were left behind. Like he left, you know what I mean? He left his own people behind. I don't care if you were a Democrat. I don't care what side you're on. No. You couldn't say that was a good thing that happened.
All of that goodwill that went to Afghanistan, all of those people that worked with the United States for like the 20 plus years to help them stabilize the country or whatever, for good or bad, they sided with the U.S. They are targets. They're dead now. Most of them are probably dead. Now you see people getting hung or thrown out of the Apache helicopters. So, using those things effectively. So yes, and then when you think your military intelligence, when they go into another country, are they going to be like, hey man, you guys really treated those Afghans great, maybe we should trust you now? No, you left them there to die, right? Like they did not take care of their assets. So that's not good on them for their foreign policy. Like who's going to trust them, like when they can just up and leave, and especially leave that much military might with your enemy.
Well, and that's it.
Right, so it's been a one big cluster, but with Biden's on purpose too. Like the guy's bag man, he's a money guy. He's been selling the influence from the U.S. for 50 plus years. He's one of the biggest criminals that the U.S. Has produced. He's a massive criminal. His entire family is a criminal family. It's a brutal thing. I don't know if his brother is a massive criminal, his son's a massive criminal. So yeah, it's not good stuff. But Trump, like him or not, he would have been. There was no way they could have done that with him, because he would have. There's no way that the Russia and Ukraine would be in the situation. No way China would be in the situation with Taiwan. These things would not be happening under Trump, because he wouldn't have tolerated these things. They would not have been tolerated. There would have been nobody. They wouldn't even have gotten to this point. Like he would have nixed it all.
And I think
very effective with the sanctions.
I think a lot of people will agree with me that if Clinton would have gotten in 2016, a lot of what's going on right now would have been like 10 times worse right now.
Yep, it would have been well on its way. I think that's the thing. You have Trudeau was already in place by the time, because he was 2015, I think, when Trudeau got elected. And that was the current year when he had to have half and half, right? He had to have half of female and half male. So diversity hires, right? Just basically coming out and saying so. And then when Trump got in, that was an oddity, man. People were not expecting that, oddly enough. And I think that that was the issue. That's the urgency for Trudeau right now, is because of how long they had to wait. They got held off on because of the Trump administration. They were unable to really maneuver the way they wanted to. They still pulled a bunch of crap, but they weren't able to maneuver the way they are now, where it's really, really, really blatantly obvious. And he's very, very, very much like embracing his tyranny. Like he has no problem being a tyrant right now. Trudeau, zero problem. Where before he was a little bit more trying to be softer.
Yeah. Well, I remember a little bit, like I said, I wasn't really much, obviously, me and you, Nick, here. We weren't really into politics much, like obviously in our younger days.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
but
I wasn't either.
Yeah, really. But I remember, like, whenever he was going to be the prime minister, people were like, "Oh, okay, he has kind of some good ideas." I didn't really listen to them all, but like all I knew is that, like, okay, he wants to like legalize pot. and everyone was like, "Oh, come, let's get him in. I don't care. I want pot to be legal, man." You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden he gets in, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh wait, it's legal, but like you have to go through all like." Yeah, he got legal, but now look at the consequence now.
Oh yeah, but you know what? People are funny, man. Like they have no problem with that. Like they were cool. They got pot legal. That's cool. And he's been a joke for an embarrassment for some time now. But some people, they can be an embarrassment. They can get fired. He can go blackface. He can do all these things. Anybody else would be like social suicide. If you're dead.
Yeah.
Who played blackface worse than Trudeau? Nobody. He had it down to the arms. He had it down to every inch of his body.
He is deeply, into being best blackface.
Then he calls a bunch of people at a protest that are being themselves racist. Yeah. It's like, okay, buddy, I'll take that message from you.
He's captain appropriation, but he's bad. That's the way it is, though. Like, he's such a great liar. He can just literally look at you in the face and say, yeah, no, you're the racist, not me. And it's like, well, here's a picture of you in blackface. Yeah, but you're the racist. And no, it's not blackface, it's brownface. It's brownface because that's better than blackface. Like, is it really? Like, they literally try to downplay it by saying it was brown face.
No. Okay, you see my beer bottle? You see my beer bottle? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's brown. Okay, you see my binder right here? That's black. That was Trudeau. Okay, yes. That was Trudeau.
No, it's so funny how this happens, but that's the way it works, And they have a spin machine that has no problem lying to your face. Like, they're pathological liars. They lie. No remorse, nothing. Just like, openly lie to your face. So if they're talking, they're lying. You have to just verify.
Yeah, no, like what I was going to say, like what I have to point this out too. With the protests and everything that's going on now, first question I have, do you think that there's still going to be protests in Ottawa coming? Like tomorrow is Sunday. Do you think there's going to be protests in Ottawa tomorrow?
No.
I don't think so.
It's really...
I feel like if there is going to be a protest, it's going to be on foot, probably not with trucks. I mean, I know that there's going to be a regroup. Mm-hmm. And a new plan on what they're gonna do,
right?
But yeah, I don't know if it's gonna, like, tomorrow is probably not gonna be a big protest if there is any.
No, I think the plan right now is basically to go to a safe place, basically. Exactly.
That's what I would do.
To back off for a little while, and when
let the police presence.
Exactly. When they will probably go back to Parliament so they can continue fighting for everybody's rights.
Yeah.
And what an asshole of a fucking prime minister. And I will swear to this because it actually what a fucking asshole. And I'm gonna say this. I don't care if they ban me off YouTube. I'll put this on Rumble. Okay. Today they were supposed to have a meeting in Parliament.
Yeah.
Right. And he just says, cancels it. Because is it the problem? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because I used to know more about this than me. What the Prime Minister wants to do, his actions are only good for 7 days, right?
Right.
Okay, so Friday, they were supposed to vote on it.
Yes.
Well, what happened to that? He canceled it. Yeah. Why? So he'd have more power over the weekend with the protest.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He canceled it because he enacted the thing. They canceled the vote because he enacted this War Measures Act. So
what do you call that? What do you call that? First thing, what do you call that? Abuse of power. That's abuse of power.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know what I mean? He knew he could get away with it, and he did.
Yeah, no, he's an abuser.
He's not stupid. He definitely thought this out for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
he brought in measures at the right time so that he could cancel the whole thing, so he had extra time during the weekend. It's really fucked.
No, because like the whole shtick on the charter rights and and the Bill of Rights, and the difference between the two is there's a lot of people speculating or trying to identify the difference, where the Charter, it was part of the Constitution Act of '82, and the Bill of Rights was ascended into law in 1960. But the Charter, in somewhere, it says that it doesn't abrogate the Bill of Rights. But the Bill of Rights is absolute, where the Charter, there are reasonable limitations of your rights.
Right.
And that's what O is leaning on, that they can come along and they can impose these reasonable limits. That's why they always are talking about the Charter. But when even talking to the police officers here, there's a variety of individuals that were here protesting that were just adamant about trying to distinguish between the difference between the Bill of Rights and the Charter. And the police officers, they swear an oath onto the Charter and not the Bill of Rights. Okay. So as far as they're concerned, the Bill of Rights is bullshit, but it's really not. But you have to enforce that. It becomes an issue where you have to enforce it yourself. And a lot of people are not going to be in a position to want to do that, or, it's a major hassle. But the thing is that the government keeps pounding you with the Charter. The cops are all about the Charter.
Right.
Doesn't you have to be, but you have to distinguish and know the difference, because the Bill of Rights, you're innocent until proven guilty, and the Charter, you're basically guilty and you prove yourself innocent, which is against this. It's a violation of laws of logic. It's a violation of the burden of proof fallacy.
They might as well call it the Charter Express, because they can basically make your rights come and go whenever they want.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So, I mean, there's certain sections that are you have to do, we can limit certain things, and that's what they're basically doing. And they have all kinds of sophists that are working in the government and as their lawyers, who are looking at all the loopholes and how they can manipulate this to their advantage, and they're doing it. Yeah. And if we let them do it, I mean, there's a guy named I think it's Brian Peckford. I don't know if you heard of that guy. He's one of the guys, one of the architects of the Charter. He's suing the government right now. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, you know what? You're saying that. You're saying that, and I actually recall hearing something about it, that the guy that wrote it is suing them because everything that the Charters of Rights was supposed to be, right now they're just kind of throwing a blind eye to say that's because this is the Emergencies Act. It's no.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Well, even with before they even enacted the Emergency Act, Trudeau was caught saying, I know we're violating your Charter rights, but we're still going to do it. So they're adamant. They're going to get their way. They're too knee deep into it. He's right on board with this whole Build Back Better. He's dropped that thing so many times. He's in it.
I know you weren't speeding, sir, but I'm going to give you a speeding ticket anyway.
Pretty much, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, guys. I gotta get going pretty soon, man. I'm sorry to say, it's been really good talking to you guys.
Yeah, this is great. No, well, I just want to state one more thing before you go.
Yeah.
Is that with all the protests that's going on right now, now you're not allowed to have protests. Now you're not allowed to have it. They're not allowed to give funds to truckers. They're not allowed to. People aren't even allowed to cash money if it's going to the truckers, because their bank accounts will get froze, right? So there's every scenario that they can to have that protest and to help, to try and get the government to talk to them, is falling short. What's one tactic you think that we have left if all this fails? What do you think is the one thing that they couldn't control, no matter what? If they took away everyone's money, what's one thing that they could do? No, I'm just going to state this here. Yeah. What's one thing that the truckers could do that no SWAT team, no police officer, no military could stop? You know what that is? The truck drivers say, okay, you know what? We're all going on strike. We're not driving.
I agree. I was just going to say, a mass strike, I think is something there's something, this is something that people don't, some people are unaware of. I've talked to folks about this as well earlier, is that in the Roman times, man, there was the plebs were the workers, and there was the aristocratic people, the rulers, and every now and then the plebs would say "screw you," and they would just drop their tools and walk up into the mountains and like say, "Do it for yourself. We're done. You're mistreating us. We're going on strike." Essentially, they called it secessio plebis, and the Palladians, the leaders, would have to go up to the plebs and make an arrangement or make a deal with them. Say, hey, we gotta, we want you to come back to work because they can't do the stuff, right? So that's it. I'm not strike is about the only, and that way you're not imposing on anybody else's, land. You're just parking yourself at home.
Yeah. What are they gonna do? Give you a fine for parking on your own lawn?
Oh, thanks. Probably will, man.
Probably will. Well, really though, it's actually gotten that crazy. Is where you think, oh yeah, they can't do that. They can do whatever they want. They just took away your rights. That is literally put there for you as a Canadian, as an immigrant of Canada. That's your right. They just took that away and said, you know what? Nah, don't listen to that. Listen to us. You know what I mean? That's scary. It's scary. It's sad. And like, I know you have to go. I'm sorry. It's just like, you see those veterans like that were, what were they doing? They were at
the memorial.
They're at the memorial.
And,
okay.
They were told that they only have a limited amount of times to give their forgiveness, and they're gonna get kicked out. They wouldn't even allow them to stay at the memorial to prayer, to chant, to sing.
No respect.
How much lower can they go than that? How much lower can a country go than that?
Yeah, they don't respect these monuments. They don't respect the people who respect the monuments. They don't respect the flag. So they are using this. This is all tools for them to use to gain more power, but they have nothing but contempt for people that actually hold them in high esteem. They just look at these people as being stupid and controllable and chattel. We're like money to them. That's all. We're stock, right? Livestock.
Yeah.
And they don't really care about the lives. Like you and I, and we can talk and hear stories about people at these protests, and we can feel like, I was talking to a woman who, her husband passed away a year ago, and she still hasn't had a memorial for him because they can't afford, because of all the stupid COVID things. She, the husband was cremated. She couldn't go into the hospital room because she wasn't vaccinated, so she couldn't see him at time of death. Stupid. She had to pay $7,000 to see the body before they cremated it.
Oh,
it's just atrocity, insult after insult after insult, after suffering such a horrible thing. And this is the humanity that we're dealing with, and this is what they're creating. We're creating, how many people work in stores that have been absolutely inhumane to other people because you're not wearing a mask, or somebody, I know people that they have issues, they have asthma, they have issues as far as seizures and things like that. They need to breathe, they have issues with
or some people have anxiety. Some people are born and they have anxieties, and they have some people have anxiety with that stuff. And
it's not even because they're not masked. It's because they're not following the rules. Like, that's the thing that's up everyone's ass. It's like no one cares that that you may be exempt. No one's worried about getting the coof from somebody not masked. They're pissed because you're not following the rules, and they're following the rules. And who are you not to follow the rules? And you say, well, no, this person has a health issue, and they don't care. Then you realize, oh, you're evil. Because if you were an empathetic person, you would go, oh, okay, well, I hope you're okay. I don't want you to be unwell. I'm not concerned about things, so I don't. But no, they're not. They're so. It's just been exposing how evil so many people are, how inhumane, how like no compassion for their fellow man. I've seen so many in big box stores, just people just being treated poorly. Just by other people, and people that work there, and they feel justified in doing so because they were told that they have to tell them to wear a mask, or they have to tell them that. It's so ridiculous, But that's the world we live in now. So it's, if you can find compassionate, decent people, latch onto them, try to make a community, and try to cancel the people before they cancel you, because you're not wrong to get canceled by these insane people.
Well, it's like this. It's like this stream right here. We're gonna put this on YouTube, but they're gonna probably end up just like shadow banning us. But it's okay. We got Rumble, we got Twitch, we got everything else. I don't care. I'll repost it thousands of times. I don't care. But as a truck driver, I drive to like New York City, Jersey, Pennsylvania, and stuff like that. And a lot of the times you see Midland trucks, Sunbury trucks, and who are they owned? But who are they owned by? Irving. You know what I mean? And whenever I was thinking of all these protests in Ottawa, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, there's a lot of owner operators. You see some other chain businesses that's there. You know, what's one of the big oil oil companies in Canada? Irving?
You got me, man. I'm not even sure.
No, the big oil company, the big oil company in Canada is Irving. Gas station. Your gas. Where do you get gas? Irving. Where does the diesel go? They own all the forestry in Maine. Almost all the forestry in Maine.
Wow.
You know what I mean? They got Midland. They got Sunbury. They got oil. They own oil. They own your fuel in your car. I was thinking to myself, you know, you see all these protests going on. It's like, okay. It's like, where are they? You know, if you'd have a big business like Irving, you know, supporting these protests, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But if you'd have a big business like that, supporting a cause like, hey, you know, we want our freedom back, I think maybe the results would be different. But it's hard to say because look what the government's doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I doubt
really,
at this
though.
Point.
I mean,
we've had a lot of people on our side. You know, we've got like Elon Musk tweeting about it. You know, some pretty big people, but even them they're getting.
We need him to design like a George Jetson like type of rocket thing and just like land there and be like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, park his rocket in front of the parliament.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just liking the fact that he's doing it for the lulz, man. I get a kick out of it. I'll take it for what I can get.
Yeah. Oh, what's going on there, Fred? Yeah. But it's just like I'll put it. I know you gotta go. Sorry. It's just that's just the thing. I hope that good things come out of this, but like I stated, and like you made excellent good points on here. I agree with 100% with everything that you said, and I hope that humanity can come together, and that that they just look for different solutions because they can't give up where they are at right now. Okay, they can't protest. Okay, they can't fund the truckers. Okay. Well, instead of saying, okay, we can't do anything and give up and say, okay, we lost our country, well, no, there's always a way. Like I said, just park your truck at home. Don't go to work.
It's not over yet. There's a lot of people that are just nutting down. They're saying, okay, fine. You're going to stop us from doing that. We'll do it a different way.
Now, it's like I said, keep looking for different solutions.
Yep.
And hopefully people, hopefully things will work out the way that everyone wants it to, or at least the way that we want it to, and majority of I think people want it to.
Well, this will benefit.
Hey man,
everyone.
I want to thank you guys so much for inviting me on. It's wonderful talking to you guys. I really appreciate it.
This was great, my friend.
Thank you guys.
Sorry for the little abrupt getting going. Hopefully
we can do this again sometime, man. It was a lot of fun, and I wish you guys all the very best. Peace and love
for sure. I mean, if you want to do it
down in Ottawa, and peace and love to you in Maine. You guys take care.
Yeah, you too, man. Anytime you want to do this, anytime, just message me up, or I'll even give you his email, and we'll try and sort something out.
Sounds great, man. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. All right.
All right. We'll send you the link to the podcast so you can send to your friends or whatever.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a good evening, everyone. Stay safe. All right.
Oh, I will.
Thank you.
But
take care.
Wow.
So we're going to conclude to this broadcast. That was Chris Mayville, and he was one of the persons that was on scene in Windsor, like I had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. And I thought that, from the video that he had live, they had made some good points, and I wanted to bring him on the podcast, and which we did, and he was a very grateful guest, and we were thankful to have him. And we look forward to having him again. So I just want to say, everyone, this has been a good podcast, and hopefully it wasn't too like, oh man, he's gotta go, but I just had some points I tried to get in there because he was making a lot of good points, and I didn't want to check in any of my comments and him forget because it was, or rushed off topic, because sometimes I can do that really quickly, and that's just my brain. But hope you all enjoyed this podcast. We are gonna try and do more guests like this. You know what I mean? And
that'd be so fantastic.
Sounds
I love
fantastic.
I mean, I've eventually one day we want to do it where, like, we can bring people in and do a podcast, but that's not going to happen for a while.
In person would be so nice.
Oh, it would be so much easier, don't have to worry about bandwidth and all this and that, and set up cameras and phones.
Just at a round table or something.
Yeah. So, everybody, I just want to conclude and say we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Comment, like, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can email us.
And don't forget to share it.
Don't forget to share. And everyone be good. Okay, be good. And the other thing is just like I said, if you're scared to go protest right now, we get it. And if you don't want to support and send money, we get it. But there is also a solution. Let's all the truckers just hang up your keys. And Midland, maybe do that too. I don't know, maybe not on our side, but I really hope that you would be. Just hang up your keys.
That'd be the last resort, if anything. Hopefully.
Well, that's the only.
But,
what's
at this rate, I don't know what we can do.
But what's Trudeau gonna do? What's Trudeau gonna do? Go to the post office himself. Go and deliver some goods with a tractor trailer.
He'll make it mandatory that everybody above 18 that doesn't have a job needs to become a trucker within 3 weeks.
Yeah. No, I think it's it's craziness. But anyway, again, thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the podcast. All right, good night.
Absolutely.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.